Welcome back to another episode of College Hockey Talk. We are joined here today by rising senior forward and newly named assistant captain of the Ohio State Buckeyes women's hockey team, Tatum Skaggs. Welcome to the pod, Tatum, and thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to sit down and talk.
That's awesome. And I'd like to start off by asking, what's it like to prepare for this upcoming season with so much uncertainty, and what are you doing personally to get ready?
Yeah, like you said, there's just so much uncertainty, obviously, with the upcoming season. I just think right now, as a team, we're kind of just having a positive outlook. Obviously, we just heard that Ivy schools canceled their season up until January 1st. So we're still holding on to some hope that we're going to continue and push through. So just to prepare, I've been, trying to skate as much as I can. Get in the gym as much as I can with my trainer. But like you said, there's a lot of uncertainty, but to continue to have a positive outlook is all that we can really do right now.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, you were also recently named assistant captain. How does it feel to be selected, and what leadership do you want to bring to Ohio State this year?
Yeah, it's an absolute honor to be represented by my teammates that they chose to have me represent them. Sorry, I should say. Obviously, whether some people know me or not, I have a very outgoing personality. So I connect, I think, with a lot of the girls on the team, and I think that's kind of like the role that I can fill is just be somebody that everyone can come to, talk, and just be the communication between coach and the team. Obviously, that's something that all four of us captains will have to do. And obviously, like we just talked about in the last question with the uncertainty, I think it's important that we fill that role really well this year, just the communication between the team and coach and back and forth. And I just am so happy for our team, where we've become, or where we came from, and now looking at us as the WCHA champs for 2020. So I'm just excited to help represent the team and see where we're headed.
That's awesome. And prior to Ohio State, you played for the Chicago Mission U19 team, where you won a league championship in 2017. What was that experience like for you, and how did it help you prepare for college hockey?
Yeah, the Chicago Mission, I'll give a shout out to them. They have such a high elite program to help prepare girls for college. I think, honestly, it's like almost 100% that all the girls that go through the mission end up playing college hockey. So just the tempo that our practices were, the standards that we were held to were high. And it honestly truly was a smooth transition for me from the mission to Ohio State, just because the mission is so elite. I just shout out to my coach, Tony Catchy. He really helped with all of that, and just preparing us for college by sitting us down, talking to us weekly in the locker room about, the different life lessons and such. And so when I got to Ohio State, it was pretty seamless because Coach Muzzerall is somebody who holds you to a very high standard as well. And that's part of the reason our program's been so successful is from her coaching and her culture that she's built at Ohio State. So just from the mission to Ohio State, it was very similar coach to coach. So that's why it made it so much easier for me, I think, than some girls. But, I can appreciate everything that the mission did for me.
Now, I was recently watching an interview where you were with a men's soccer player, and you said you used to play gymnastics. And my question is there anything you learned or did in gymnastics that has helped in hockey?
Yeah. So that interview is actually something that they're going to continue to do at Ohio State with a different athlete. I can't remember the name of it.
Buck to buck,
Yeah, buck to buck. That's what it was. And so, I was with Ketchup. He's a men's soccer player. And yes, I did do gymnastics. And do I wish I still did that as well as hockey? Of course. Gymnastics is like the most amazing sport. I admire Simone Biles so much. But so I think just from doing the different sports, I learned that obviously you have to like work hard at everything you do, and the coaches back at the gym that I was at were intense, and so it just helped me to every single practice just give it 100%.
And you also won the Toyota USA Hockey Nationals in 2015, where your team beat number 2 ranked Shattuck St. Mary's. Describe what was that like to play in that game and to win that championship?
Yeah, that was obviously back when I won that national championship. I thought that was like my dream come true, the biggest stage I could have been on, like all this stuff until I got to college and realized that it's a much bigger stage. But back in, was it 2015, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, so back in 2015, I was a sophomore in high school. It was my first year at the Chicago Mission. And I was actually playing, so I was 16, so I should have been on U16s, but Tony Catchy had me play up that year just for development reasons. And so I was pretty young. I think I was the youngest one on the team. And just playing in Green Bay, which is my home state of Wisconsin, was something super, 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 super cool. I'll never forget it. And I just remember like the clock ticking down. All of us on the bench were like grabbing each other, and like started 10 seconds countdown. I think we were up on them either by a goal or two. So we knew that I think we had the game. I mean, just throwing your gloves up in the air, throwing your stick is just something that I think every player needs to like feel, because it just like, you feel like a sense of like pride that like all of your hard work paid off that you just did for an entire hockey season. And I was just being at like the bottom of that pile when we celebrated was something remarkable. I absolutely never forget that day.
And beating Shattuck St. Mary's, who is a very well-known hockey program, they were number 2
Yep.
ranked. How good were they when you played in that game?
Yeah, St. Mary, that prep school is like always the team to beat. You prepare and you talk about them the week before you play them and such. And so, like, you play them obviously a lot during the year, and I think we were like pretty split with the series between them that year. But we knew that we had to go in and play our best hockey. I mean, they are a super elite program as well, and they send a lot of good girls across the country to different colleges. So just preparing for that game, I mean, it felt good to beat them and, have that last win of the season. But, I mean, kudos to them. They're always a hard team to play. And obviously I've been out of AAA hockey for a bit now, so I don't know exactly where all the programs are at. But, I mean, continuously they always put up big games, and, they send a lot of girls to colleges. So they're also a great program.
That's cool. And the same year you got to participate in the USA Under-18 Select Camp. What did you take away from that experience, and especially competing against some of the best players in the country?
Yeah, I mean, at that camp, like you said, you compete against, the best of the best at your age level. And to be completely and brutally honest with you, I went to camp and I thought I did pretty good. And come to the end of the camp, they choose a 23-girl roster to play Team Canada, who's also holding a camp at the same time. And we, it's called the Adirondack Room. It's in Lake Placid, New York. So you go to Adirondack Room the last day of camp, and they read the roster off. And it kind of like, to envision it, it genuinely is kind of like the movie Miracle. Like, they read the roster off, and like, if you aren't on it, like, you pick your stuff up and like you go to your room and you depart in the morning. And so going to that camp, I was extremely honored that I was even invited. That's something that obviously not everyone gets to do. So I didn't take it for granted. I soaked it all in. Come to the end of the camp, though, I did not make that 23-girl roster. And to say I was like heartbroken and like thought my life was shattered, 100%. I think I was 16, or I don't know how old I was, but so at that moment I was like, oh my gosh, like, I just got cut. Like, I don't know if I should continue with hockey, like, being so dramatic. But the biggest takeaway that I came out of that is genuinely to, like, just because you hear no once doesn't mean, you can't change that outcome. So I got invited back the next year for U22s or U18 again. And actually I've gotten cut So I go to camp every year, but I get cut every year. But that doesn't mean I can't keep trying. Just because at the end of the week, they tell you what you got to work on and what you got to fix, and, they hope to see you again. And so kind of just from that, you got to sit down, you got to face the fact that you just got cut and look at your coaches and the USA staff in the eyes and have a conversation with them. And I just think it's so maturing to be able to do that at like a young age. But the staff there and the program that they have is absolutely amazing. And I hope one day I can put that jersey over my head in an actual game. But I think just every year I just take more and more information and skills and, lessons out of each camp that I go to.
And I hope you do get selected soon. That'll be pretty cool to see that. And I'm going back to college hockey. Why did you decide to go to Ohio State?
Yeah, so my path for choosing college was, I'd say, a little different among, many that I've heard. So I was actually an 8th grader when I went to a summer camp at Ohio State with Coach Nate Hannerhan. And after camp, he showed a little interest. And like I said, I think I was 14 at the time. And so obviously I was still young, didn't exactly know what kind of decision I was ready to make. But he offered a spot at Ohio State to me my freshman year. And I sat on it for a little bit. I wasn't exactly sure. My dream being from Wisconsin was to be a Badger and Badger this and Badger that. But I think at the end of the day, I made the best decision that I did, in my entire life. Ohio State was a program that I could help build with my other classmates. It wasn't something I'd just step onto and, win a championship. I had to work for the championship. And that to me is more special than, I think, getting onto a roster on a team that you're just handed that ring. You're handed that championship whether you play or not, And so just being able to help build a culture and a team that's going to rise was something that was super important to me. And my major is special education, and actually Wisconsin does not have that major. And that's something that it's like my passion, my love, And so Ohio State is a great program for that. I actually think they're like top 10 or something, I think, in the country for it. But and so it kind of just was a perfect fit overall in every single aspect. So Ohio State has provided me with so many opportunities, just with hockey and not being an athlete. Like they're preparing us for life every single day, and they're giving us so many different experiences. I traveled to Costa Rica, completely paid for by Ohio State Athletics to go to a service trip. I was going to go study abroad, completely paid for by Ohio State Athletics. So just the school in itself, the tradition, the people, the excellence is kind of what we say, is so strong. And it's just a strong university that I'm so glad to be a part of.
And you had a fantastic year, your freshman season, where you had 37 points and the 7th highest freshman point total in program history. Even with those great numbers, what was the toughest thing you had to adjust to playing college hockey?
Yeah, so I just think that, honestly, my freshman year, going back to the Chicago Mission, they prepared me so much. And I think that was probably the biggest adjustment being 18 years old, I'm playing against 22-year-olds, girls that are seniors. And so just like the experience playing against girls that have been in the league for 4 years is tough in itself, So I just think that freshman year, the biggest adjustment for everybody is being on a team that you see every single day, you skate every single day. And so that part of it, I think, was the biggest adjustment. But like I said, Frozen Four, I couldn't have written a better freshman year.
And you also made the Frozen Four that same year. What was that experience like for you, especially since it was the program's first in history?
Yeah. So having it be the first Frozen Four program history was something special. Going back to help build a program, the girls prior to me, a couple of years prior, they were building a program too. And so kudos to all the girls that have been through Ohio State to help do what we did the last couple of years. But that experience was kind of speechless, honestly, because I mean, you get put up in a hotel, you have a banquet, you have, 5-star dining everywhere you go. And it was just Ohio State spoiled us. And it was just super cool to take Clarkson into overtime for that. But obviously an unfortunate ending to the season. But just to be at that experience my freshman year, it kind of put the thought in my brain or my mind of the feeling of getting there, of how bad I want to go there again, and so it's kind of, installing that into the incoming freshmen of this year of how cool the experience was, and, trust the process, trust coach, trust the upperclassmen that the things that we've done, the feelings that we had, we got to go back so that you can experience it. So obviously I hope to see the Frozen Four again this year if everything goes smoothly. But yeah, reaching the Frozen Four my freshman year was nuts. It was awesome.
That's great. And your sophomore season, you had 17 goals and was fourth on the team in points. How did you maintain that success from your freshman season, and how did you gain confidence in gaining more knowledge in college hockey?
Yeah, so I think just every year that, you move up in the team, freshman year, you feel small, you feel little, even though you shouldn't. That's what I'm going to try and help with our freshmen this year is just because you're a freshman doesn't mean you're any better, any worse than anybody else on the team, and they should have a voice just as much as, a senior should. But I just think every year that you move up in classes, so freshman to sophomore year, you gain a little bit more confidence because, you're becoming more of a veteran. And so just feeling that, confidence, I think, can help everyone. I mean, confidence is the most powerful thing a player can have. And so I just think that going from freshman year to sophomore year, I was able to gain a little bit more confidence, in just hockey in general. And I played again with my line mate, Emma Malte, so she also helped me a lot with that. And she's obviously a remarkable player herself. And so just like I said, and then moving up to junior year, you just feel more confidence as you move up and up.
And getting back to this past season, your team won the WCHA Championship against last year's champions, Wisconsin. Talk about what it was like to win that championship, especially against Wisconsin since they beat you guys the previous year.
Yeah. I mean, the best way I could feel it is it felt so good. Felt really good to be able to, put our school on the map for the first championship in the league, and to beat a team such as Wisconsin, who has some of the most talented girls on the team and on their roster in the country. So it just felt good to finally, do something that will represent Ohio State proudly, and just, give back to what Ohio State's done for us. And so beating Wisconsin in overtime was a feeling I hope to feel again, whether that be another league championship, national championship, even just a game. Beating Wisconsin is something that you take some pride in, and that you hope to do more often than not.
And you also scored the game-winning goal in overtime for that game. How cool was it to score that goal, and did it even feel real, getting it in overtime?
Yeah. Oh, gosh. So I could relive, that game, every single day. But it's kind of something, the best way I can put it is it's like that goal that you, dream of as a kid and as an athlete, and truly speaking, I've never, ever, ever had a game-winning goal, I don't think, in the history of my career. And so to be able to do it on that kind of stage and against that team and that situation was, all glory to God for that one, because I couldn't have written a better story, and I just think that when it went in, honestly, I didn't even see it until half my team was already off the bench, gloves in the air, helmets in the air, jumping for pure joy. That feeling, the team feeling that we had, was crazy. And I wouldn't have wanted to do it with any other team than this year. I mean, the girls that we have the most special, amazing relationship as a team. Everyone gets along. Everyone hangs out. You know, there's no cliques. And so to have that win with this team was something I wish I could redo over and over and over and over again.
And you were supposed to play in the women's tournament this year before the season was canceled. How did you find out, and what was the reaction amongst the team, especially the seniors who worked so hard to get there?
Yeah, and obviously a little bit of a soft subject for our seniors and even, you know, us underclassmen who I get that it wasn't our last year, but we got the tournament, you know, stripped from us in a bit. But we were actually at the airport. Our bags were on the plane, like legit on the plane. We were boarding. I think some girls already boarded. And we got a call from our AD or whatnot and said, you know, for the safety and like of your team and just we want everyone to be together. They decided to take us off the plane. So we had to wait for our bags to get unloaded. And our coach just honestly, we did a huge team hug. She held us in her arms and just said, I'm so sorry. There's nothing that I can say to help fix what you're feeling right now. And everyone came over to the house and we listened to Governor of Ohio's speech, kind of just to help, you know, see what he was saying and what was going on in the state of Ohio currently. And she gave the seniors a hug and said, you know, we just ended the last weekend on a win with the WCHA. She's like, if it were up to anybody, everyone would be in our position, you know, wanting to win their last game as a senior and the way that it happened in the tournament. And so, I don't know. She said she's like, I'm so sorry. And obviously it's not her fault, you know, but, it was a really hard feeling to, you know, embrace and to actually go through with, but it made it kind of better that everyone was in the same boat and, you know, everyone got the tournament stripped from them, at the end. You know, we weren't just alone. So very hard feeling back in March, but obviously come this season, I just hope that we can, you know, get our feet back on the ice as a team and as a university and a league to get the season going.
And on a more positive note, we're getting to the segment where I call it the non-hockey segment, where we ask you non-hockey questions. In doing research, it says that you were on a famous person's YouTube channel. Who was that, and how did you get on?
Yeah, so I was a freshman, I think, or was it last year? One of the two. And I don't know exactly what his name is, but it's this like young guy with his grandma. What's his name? I don't remember, but it's this young guy with his grandma, and she goes around and does these crazy things. And they came, and she pretended to be a college student. So I was actually walking with a recruit that was staying with us. She came to class with me, and on my way to the rink after class, I got stopped by this grandma, and she's like asked me a bunch of questions, and you know her responses were absurd. But yeah, I got on the YouTube channel of this, and it has some crazy amount of views actually, but I'm only in it for about 10 seconds, so I got a little highlight in that.
At least you got some internet fame, right?
Exactly.
What's your favorite thing about Ohio State?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I would say my most favorite thing about Ohio State is probably the tradition. The traditions that are set at Ohio State is crazy. Just one of them that I could list right off the top of my head is the football team on home weekends stays in the student-ran hotel called the Blackwell on campus. It's across from the stadium, across from our rink. And come Saturday morning, there's something called Skull Session, and the football guys walk from the hotel in all their suits, matching suits, in a line, like 3 across, 2 across, whatever, led by Coach Meyer, now Ryan Day, but at the time. And so they walk from the hotel to St. John Arena, and it's called Skull Session. The band plays some songs, and then the head coach, Ryan Day, gives a speech for like 5 minutes, and then a player speaks, and then they chant, OHIO. And so you're literally like walking next to the football guys. And so just the tradition that's been set at Ohio State is really cool. And I don't think any other school can really compare to that.
Have you had an opportunity to go to a game?
Oh, yeah. I went to Coach Muzzy my freshman year when we went to the Frozen Four. Ohio State wanted to recognize us the following year at a home football game at halftime. And so Coach Muzzy was like, okay, what games can we come to? And they listed them. And she's like, hold up. There's a Michigan-Ohio State game that is, at the Shoe. And they're like, yeah, but that's the Michigan game. And she was like, yeah, and that's the one we want to get recognized at. So I actually went to the Michigan-Ohio State game
That's awesome.
my sophomore year and stood on the field with 107,000 fans around, applauding us. And I have like chills talking about it because it was an experience that I'll never forget.
And OSU probably won that game since Michigan can't seem to beat
Ohio State. Yeah, Michigan can't find a way to beat Ohio State. So we're just going to keep beating them.
My next question is, what is your favorite type of music and artist, and what do you listen to before a game?
Before a game, we have our team music. It's some remix that we put on, and then it, plays the whole time through. You'd have to ask Liv Soares, number 19. She's the music guru. So I don't touch the music before a game. I just do my thing and, warm up. But I'd say outside of hockey, I like country. I really like Luke Combs probably the most right now. If you ask me, a couple weeks, could change. But Currently I'm a Luke Combs fan.
And I also found out on the USA Hockey website that you can make a really good peanut butter and jelly sandwich. What is the secret to that?
Oh, you got to have the right ratio of peanut butter to jelly. You can't have too much peanut butter. Otherwise you're like smacking your lips and you can't, it's like, ugh. So you need the right amount of jelly, the right amount of peanut butter, just right. You got to let it come out of the bread a little bit. It's got to be oozing out. And then you got to cut it in like half, but not half where it's like straight down. You got to cut it on a diagonal.
Yeah. What type of peanut butter do you use?
Peanut butter, I use the all natural. What is it? It's like, what's like the most famous peanut butter brand again?
Jif, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's that, but like the natural kind.
Yeah. And you also said your favorite TV show is Friends. Who do you think from that show would be the worst hockey player?
Oh gosh. I'm going with Ross. I think Ross
would do well though, because he can pivot with the skates.
Oh yeah, that's true. I don't know though. Ross doesn't strike me as someone who's very athletic. He's a character. He's something.
Definitely. And getting back to some final hockey questions, you said Alex Ovechkin is your favorite athlete. What about his game do you like, and what do you try to emulate from him?
Yeah, I've been obsessed with Alex Ovechkin. I just want to meet him one day so badly. So, but I would say his, like, honestly, like everybody sees, his shot is like absolutely crazy. His release is so quick that like a goalie nor player can see it. So I just think that his shot is wicked. So if I ever could shoot like Alex Ovechkin, that'd be a dream of mine.
What would you say to him if you ever met him?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I honestly, a funny story is I was so obsessed with him. Like my local hockey store that I grew up going to, would always get like shipments of like CCM, like Ovechkin stuff. And in a package one time, CCM sent them like these stickers, like I'd say about the size of like an iPhone, of like a fat head of Alex Ovechkin. And I had stickers of Alex Ovechkin's head all over my stuff, like in my room, on my phone, computer, my bed, like fat head pictures, just like of his face, So I probably wouldn't tell him that, but I would just admire his hockey skills, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's pretty crazy. Like I remember watching him play against the Bruins, and he like knocked Zdeno Chara in the bench. It was like just
Oh
crazy to
yeah,
me. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
he's something else. He's so talented.
in playing in the WCHA, what's your favorite road arena to play in?
My favorite road arena, 100% it's Laban. Laban is the Badgers rink. Badgers fans are crazy, so it's always fun when they score. It's like it's crazy fans and noise and stuff. But when you score, the best feeling in the world is to shut their fans up and
Yeah.
like they just sit there and they're like they don't even know what to say. So I would 100% say Laban when the game is in your favor. When it's not in your favor, it's not always the best, but to hear crickets in the arena, from the Badger fans is something that it feels too good. I'll say that. It feels too good.
And my final question is, what is your favorite hockey memory since you have so many great ones?
Favorite hockey memory, just winning the WCHA this last year. The hard work that went into it, the perseverance. We're on a dry season. And so, the sacrifice the choice that you make, it's not a sacrifice, it's a choice. So the choices that you make to prepare your body, your mind, just every single day, the work that goes into it, it truly felt so good and finally paid off. I would say that was the best team wins that we've had that whole year. And so I just think that memory will be something I think that'll probably, go down as one for the books. That's for sure. One of my favorite ones.
Well, I want to end it off on that good note. Thank you so much for coming on, Tatum. It's been a really fun. I wish you the best for next season,
Thank you.
and have a safe drive to Columbus.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.